it's not.
All of us can have a caddy if you
Yeah.
will.
Looks like a box.
Exactly.
Oh, stop.
I did with help.
What? What?
That's like the best. I think this is not a good set.
I never want to hear that word again. I like this.
He was the king of. Oh, no.
Hey, Steve. Yes, sir?
And then we scared the light.
Oh, no, they just simply wanted to move it
I'll
to
be
here.
here when you need me. How's that?
But this has a, velocity zone. Ready on the right? Ready on the left?
Always ready. Early.
We're up.
Good evening and welcome to the August 21st meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. Couple of ground rules, please. Silence all your electronic devices.
Use my electronic.
If you're going to hold a private conversation, please take it outside. This meeting is being recorded by FCTV. If there's anyone else recording, please identify yourself for the record. If you're here to speak on any matter before the commission, and we certainly encourage you to do so, please do so from the podium, state your name for the record, and speak into the microphone at the appropriate time. First up, gotta get my paperwork in order. Minutes, July 31st. Anybody?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I did read them. I felt they were correct and complete.
I did too, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. August 7th minutes.
I also read these too, Mr. Chairman, and I felt that they were correct and complete. I didn't see anything.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second it.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Welcome, Mr. Byrd.
Thank you.
Request for a continuance under notice of intent, Delcor Realty Trust, care of Joanna Delapa, 418 Minot Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to replace and extend the existing pier.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until September 25th.
So moved. Second.
Hang on.
How many?
We have a motion and a second. Comments?
Yeah, that was my question.
Um,
How many?
this is,
This is the 1, 2, 3, 4th. Continue.
they're having trouble with their surveyor. It's a kind of a off-Cape company. They work with an off-Cape surveyor, so
Okay. What's the, when is it to?
September 25th.
Okay, guess we have a motion in a second.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. And welcome, Mr. Newton, to the meeting.
Thank you.
Request for determination of applicability, Stephen Weinig, Lot C, map 2710, 00600C, Little Neck Bars Road, West Falmouth, Mass, for permission to obtain Chapter 91 license for an existing dock.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the staff recommends a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Next up, Sean and Rebecca Doherty, 15 Stratford Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to remove invasive species and replant with native plants.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're continuing this until next week. We are meeting with the applicant's representative tomorrow.
Okay. We need to have a motion for that? No.
Yeah, we're
28th.
going to continue it to the 28th.
Okay.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue till next week. All those in favor say aye.
Oh, 8:28.
Opposed? Okay.
Oh, this is gonna be.
Georgiana Homes, 41 Bay Road, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to upgrade to a Title V septic system.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw for lot 41. It actually came in for lot 41 and lot 39, but lot 39 is outside of our jurisdiction, so, and so it will be a -3 under the bylaw for 39.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Requests for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up, Kevin and Carolyn Osgoods, number 70 Ostrom Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a single-family house with attached garage, deck, driveway, Title V septic system, retaining walls, mitigation plantings, and all associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
We're gonna have to table this.
And I don't know if it's,
Mr. Chairman, I think BSS Design just pulled in, yes or no? Thank you, Teresa.
Hi, Teresa Sprague, Blue Flags Design. I'm really just here to sit in on the hearing tonight, but Tom is supposed to be here to present, and I know that there's a lot of parking issues out there, so I believe he just pulled in and should be here momentarily.
Do you want to table this?
So I'll make a motion to table. Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to table this hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you, Teresa.
Continued request to amend existing order of conditions. Bruno Gallinelli, Baggio LP, 117 Surf Drive, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to amend DEP 25-4322 by rearranging approved concrete patio and replacing existing gravel driveway with pavers.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is here, the applicant's representative is not here. That's okay, we can table this one and then untable Tom because Tom is here.
So I make a motion to table this one and to untable Tom's. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
If you follow that, you get points.
I got it, Mr. Chairman.
That's good.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Tom Bunker. I don't know why there's so many people parked out there. Somewhere.
It's crazy. It is crazy. Why are these people still here? I thought they were supposed to be gone when I got back.
You didn't take a long enough vacation.
I know. Thank you.
I am here representing the Osgoods on this project. I used the green cards, and I guess a couple didn't get returned. So I have the receipts from the post office in there also to show the mailing. Okay. Guess I have to put in a password here.
Hey, Jen?
What? I got it,
Password.
Tom. You got it, Tom?
Well, if that's the password up top there, I guess I can type
That is
that
the
in,
password.
using one finger at a time here.
Secret.
Don't let us know.
Caps lock is on.
I don't know what is written on the lectern.
Maybe that'll try it.
There we go.
There, yeah.
He just wanted to say hello. That's his breath.
This project, on 70 Ostrom Road over in the Walkway section of Falmouth. Part of this, part of the difficulty with this whole thing does have to do with the lot shape, so I'll just show you a graphic. I think you might have seen the subdivision plan, but I'll just show the graphic of what this lot looks like and how people were allowed to make crazy subdivisions back in the day. But then to get onto a little more information, I have the town GIS, and this, where it's at X negative 999 is lot 4. This shows Red Brook, which flows down through. It's an old cranberry bog. There's a dike across there to control the water, which has been blown out by storms or tides. And so this area up here that's shown as wetland, probably at one time was cranberry bog, but it's salt marsh now, heavily vegetated all in this area. The flood zone, AE elevation 13, goes up to this in the yellow area here, and above that, that's the 13-foot contour as defined. The above that is this brown area, which is the 500 year, which is called shaded X, or X shaded, which is not a flood hazard zone and not subject to any FEMA restrictions in here. And then the white area up here is zone X, not a flood zone at all. There is also down here this red shaded area here is the velocity zone, which does get onto part of the lot down at the very bottom of the page. Our plan, the existing conditions plan, we show the resource areas here. This is the wetland salt marsh that wraps around the site here. There are multiple resource areas here. I'll start with one, how I ordered them on the narrative, and that being the first one on the narrative is the riverfront area, and that's the most, reaches the most landward, and that's defined, the riverfront, the river itself is defined as the boundary of it is the annual high water line of the river. This is Red Brook down here, and there's a ditch of the cranberry bog through here, and outside there's no longer cranberry bog but salt marsh, and wraps up along there. So I've colored this blue line through here as the edge of the river, and then 100 feet landward is the inner riparian zone. That's 100 feet from the ditch along here, and 100 feet from the edge of the salt marsh. Comes in this way. And I'll say that some of this out here we traced from the subdivision plan, but the exact location of this marsh has no bearing on this 100-foot or the 200-foot line, because you can see when this is offset 100 feet and this line is offset 100 feet. They meet here without taking any of this area into account. Further inland is another 100 feet. This is the outer riparian zone in here, and generally no work is allowed within the inner riparian zone, this 100 feet, but up to 5,000 square feet of area may be disturbed in the outer riparian zone. This is a previously disturbed site. I think this, again, the subdivision plan was in there. There actually used to be a house on Lot A, right about in this area here. It shows on the subdivision plan that's was filed. And this area that's uncolored is, has some larger trees in it, but it's clear of shrub layer in this location, and it's wooded, thickly wooded and shrub vegetation downhill of it and uphill of it in this location. The flood zones I've described, again, we have the velocity zone, and 25 feet landward of it is the Falmouth velocity zone in this location. The AE elevation 13 is right here. And we surveyed intensely along this line to determine exactly where the 13 is, because that is also the edge of the Wacoit Bay area of critical environmental concern. So we had to get this one right. We have been to Board of Appeals and got a variance. Planning, a zoning setback requires 50 feet from the ACEC. And 50 feet would have put it way up here, and that's for any principal structure. We got a variance of that restriction, and it follows this line. It's not colored, but there's a dashed line, heavy dashed line right here, labeled the zoning setback line approved by the Board of Appeals in this location. Otherwise, the 50 feet would have been much further uphill on the lot. So we have the AE zone in this location. This area from here to here is the shaded X showed on the GIS map, which can only be traced onto a plan, which comes up around here, and then uphill from that is the X zone, which is not a special flood hazard zone. I mentioned the Wacoit Bay area of critical environmental concern. That is defined as this line here, the current flood zone, in this case the 13-foot contour. At the time that the subdivision was approved, the flood zone was lower, and the area of critical environmental concern was down in this location, so the 50-foot setback would not have impinged too heavily on the buildability of this lot. Going through, no work is proposed within a flood zone, a flood hazard zone, that being the VE zone or the AE zone in this location, except as you consider a little part of it right here, there's a shed. Removing that shed is, I could say, the only work in the flood zone, and then later on there's some mitigation planting in that same AE flood zone, but there's no construction in the AE flood zone. Also, there's, other than, since the flood zone is coincident with the ACEC, the same holds true for that. There's no construction within the ACEC. But again, we'll be taking down this shed and planting mitigation within the ACEC. Salt marsh borders, well, it's within 100 feet of Lot 4. A little bit of it's on Lot 4 right here. Otherwise, it's on Lot 3 in this location, and Lot 2. And this land down here is owned under a realty trust of some sort, not part of this subdivision and not part of Lot 4. Coastal bank, any land within a flood zone which has a slope steeper than 10-to-1 is considered a coastal bank. And there is this area here, the area adjacent to the ditch, the cranberry bog ditch, has many cranberry bogs. This certainly has the look and feel that it was dug out for sanding on the bog. So there is a level area in this location, and then the bank slopes up, distinct break in the slope up through here, and that is the coastal bank. Further south of this dike, where there's no cranberry bog, probably no sanding or excavating, the bank is more spread out, and in some areas could be argued that this bank touches the wetland, and therefore it has a 50-foot zone A, whereas this bank, not touching a wetland, has just a 25-foot zone A. The 25-foot zone A is in this location right here. The 50-foot zone A from this bank is up in this location. Neither of these zone A's this zone A certainly does not go beyond the inner riparian zone. This zone A goes a little bit, but well short of the limit of work, which we're proposing way up here. The proposed work is, actually I can back up. I didn't count them, well, I have now counted them, the trees. There are 23 trees within the limit of work right here to be removed. And a lot of them in the 10 to 12 or 14 inch range. I can't remember how big they get, but they're about 390 some diameter inches of tree removal in this location. So this is the limit of work through here, and I understand there was some confusion. It's some of this riverfront, probably nobody here is an expert on doing the narrative and all for Riverfront. I talked it over with Jen. I think I was confusing Riverfront with some of the DCP regulations, which say that there can be temporary disturbance, and that is not correct. It was partly due to, there was a comment about the Septic Reserve area in here, which was considering that if it were put in, it could be revegetated over. That would be considered disturbance, although temporary, and it seems that's not, it doesn't have that wording in the riverfront area, but that reserve area can be put, and this inset shows this long leg of the lot going up to Ostrom Road. This reserve area I will place up in this location. It will fit, and that's just an alternate location in case this septic system were to fail. It would have to be pumped, but it could be put up here. More typically, frankly, in a case like this, if an upgrade is needed, they would excavate everything, all the failed soil, and just redo it in the same location. But that reserve area can be put up here. But anyway, the proposed development in this area, their outer riverfront zone is right here, so it is at the commission's discretion, they may allow up to 5,000 square feet of disturbance in that area. And what I had was 5,100 square feet in that area, but I was trading it, taking the shed out and replanting. That's, I think, 177 square feet. So in that way, I was, in my math, that's less than 5,000 or not exceeding 5,000 square feet, because we're taking some disturbance out of that riverfront area. So taking it out is removing that disturbance, but also we're putting, in addition to that, putting another 177 square feet of shrubs back in. So that can be up to, obviously, your discretion if you feel that meets the riverfront standards. In general, along the sides, for the house itself, we have a 10-foot setback, except in this case, the house sets out 2 feet, I believe, and we have a 8-foot setback, but this is in a location where I believe in 8 feet, construction equipment can go around that and around this corner. This area is the deck. It is closer than 10 feet to this limit of work, but that deck is up 8 or so feet up in the air, which will allow the deck will allow equipment access. I have a sloped lawn area held up with a retaining wall so that equipment, light construction and maintenance equipment can be gotten down this way, no steps to get in around to build this deck. So I believe that it can be built. These are masonry, possibly the Versalock or the pin together retaining wall or something more permanent, but either way, that can all be done from, mainly from the upside. No equipment has to be, get to the downhill, the outside of that wall, except masons, if they're gonna put on a veneer of stone or something. So I believe this can all be done, but as has been pointed out, it is a fairly tight fit in there. But we do have the septic system located here that meets all Title V requirements as far as setback from the house, from basement, from garage, property line. And drainage, so we have, this is the long driveway you see coming down from Ostrom Road, down here, down this driveway. And we do have, it'll be a gravel driveway, so it will not shed 100% of the rain. But we do have an inlet structure here to take stormwater runoff and into the leaching chambers put along this side of the house, and I have another inlet structure here for runoff that will go down the west side of the driveway and into that and into leaching structures. And all of the downspouts will also be connected in there. It's very sandy soil, very good for leaching in this area. So there are, within this Zone B of the coastal bank, which runs across here, we have an increase in area of 890 square feet, but the shed and deck are being removed, so we have a net increase of 650 square feet within the Zone B of the coastal bank. And this is mitigated for here with 1,300 square feet of native shrubs. In this location, there is a pathway easement, a 12-foot wide pathway easement running through here. So you might have noticed that this area is left blank, so with no planting proposed in it, and that's to keep that pathway easement open right there. And the 177 square feet of shrub planting in this location. So we have 1,400 and some square feet of shrubs. And I did not mitigate for the tree removal because there is or has been a restriction that, this is a homeowner's restriction that plants that reach more than 15 feet in height should not be planted to protect the abutters' views. And so we did put in a couple of trees toward the edge right here, but kept the main area open for the house that's just up there to the northeast on lot 4. So we did not mitigate for the tree removal. But if that becomes a requirement, either that or increasing the shrub planting, I think we can do that. I have one document here which Arlene Wilson was kind enough to share with me. The first comment that she has is about the 4 bedrooms. So they're on the plan and in the approval, this subdivision was allowed 1 lot. All the lots had 3 bedrooms, but one was allowed to have 4 bedrooms. And I hadn't picked up on this, what Arlene pointed out. that it was not noted on the plan as it should have been, which lot was allowed to have the 4 bedrooms, but we do have this deed which was granted from the original subdivider to the current owner of Lot 4. The lot including the right to put a 4-bedroom house on it. So there is that document which says we can put a 4-bedroom house on that. If you need more, we can, see what further we can do if we have to talk to the town planner or something else if you need that. Arlene mentioned I did not put the wetland restriction number. I guess I probably checked off on the notice of intent that it was not restricted. I had been looking for that. Though all those plans with the wetland restriction numbers, they were done back in the 70s, I believe, 70s or 80s. We can add that to the document here, that it's a restricted wetland, the marshes. We're not proposing any work on it. It's a moot point, but it's a technical point that could have been addressed better. I spoke about the reserve area being moved up to the road, and the comment about the didn't have topography. She was unclear on where the AE zone is, but we did explicitly survey and hunt for that 13-foot flood zone, and it is as shown on this plan. I think that's what I have to say for now. I imagine there'll be a few comments from the audience, and I'll reply to them as best I can.
Thank you. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Couple of things. We talked about the reserve, so thank you for addressing the concerns on either citing the reserve closer to the road or the actual system closer to the road, so we can kind of maybe shift that house around. This is a very, oddly shaped, or as our staff report says, strangely shaped lot, or as Maury calls it, a marginal lot. That I would be the first one, if you could cite the house outside that 200-foot riverfront, that I would be pushing you towards that. There's just no way to do that on this lot. I'll get back to the riverfront in a second. Coastal bank setback concerns we have is that I always look at a coastal bank as a whole on a lot, or a whole, the bank as a whole. So to assign, this section has one setback, this section has another. In this case, it's really not gonna matter, because even if you did put the 50-foot buffer on the kind of eastern side of that coastal bank, you're still not, you are 50 feet away from the marsh, or 40 feet away from the marsh in that area. That said, we always look at it as a whole. So going back to the riverfront, I understand the buyers or your clients' desire to maximize the amount of what they perceive their allowed, usage of that lot. But that really is up to the commission. That is at the board's discretion. You and I talked about that. Your alternatives analysis was a little thin. Thank you. And I know they're not an easy thing to write, and we don't.
Not that many riverfront areas.
Yeah, there's not that many
I thought
riverfront
it was just a
areas.
matter, either you build on this lot or you don't. But if
No.
you have to justify 5,000 versus 4,000 versus 2,000 square feet,
And I think that
That's a
you and I
different matter.
talked about that.
Yes.
Like, let's, I think you really can expand on that alternatives analysis, so that and I said, it's up to the board's discretion to allow that 5,000 square feet. That said, you're not really giving me the limit of work that I usually like to see in a lot. You're really maximizing that out, and I'd like to see the scope of the project maybe looked at, compare it to the other houses in the neighborhood. You know, we've had that looked at before, where we've seen in the few riverfront projects that we do see, you know, looking at the other adjacent homes, areas in the neighborhood, or lots in the neighborhood, or houses in the neighborhood, and kind of compare those. So I'd like to see you kind of expand your alternatives analysis that way. I mean, it's not just, I can't build this house and I walk away, a tiny bungalow, this house, or nothing. I think you have other options that I would like you to explore. That said, you know, we'll talk to the town planner regarding the home restriction, and to see if any other, I mean, it clearly states in that deed that this lot does have that deeded 4-bedroom, but I will, you know, kind of talk to the town planner about that and see what other kind of restrictions are there. We did see in the subdivision plan that it's only 2,000 square feet of lawn area. I don't even think you have that on your proposed plan, because you are maximizing that allowable space with structure. So again, I can't stress enough how staff would like you to look at the scope of the project and see if we can kind of, you know, protect that riverfront a little bit more.
Yeah, and I would mention, and, you know, we discussed
Yeah.
this existing area that's unshrubed. They're not intending to put in any lawn. They don't want lawn down there, and I know they wouldn't be allowed to anyway.
No, I know.
But just point that out, that
No, I
they don't
understand.
intend to make that lawn.
No, I understand. But again, I mean, I think it's the scope. You've pretty much, you know, the resource area buffer regulations to the coastal bank, you've addressed those. I just think it's the riverfront. We don't see them that often, and they're always, you know, a continued hearing, so we can kind of get that alternatives analysis kind of buttoned down a bit. Okay? That's it for right now. Did I miss anything on our staff report? Kevin, Mr. Newton did prepare a staff report for you on this. Would just come up with some of our initial concerns and comments, so if you have any questions for us. Okay. Kevin, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay.
Courtney?
No questions right now.
Evan?
I'm tempted to ask if you found a vernal pool on the site. Okay, that's good. As far as I can tell, it's the only
You want
regulation
more
that you
resource
haven't
area?
touched on, so. No
It's
qu-
too
no-
sandy for a perched water table, and otherwise it's marsh.
Not right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How about the new person,
The
Maureen?
new person that just got,
Who is that?
have you met
Ms. Harlow Hogg?
on the septic, Tom, there's no sheet for the septic. And why is that?
We hadn't finished up the design of it. It's well above, we did a perk test, it's sandy, it's,
Well, you tell us that, but we don't have that information. So, you know, and that makes a big difference on, you know, your dry wells and everything else. I'm not saying it's not sandy, we don't have that information. The other thing that I was a little confused on when you said that any new construction has to show a reserve. And I'm glad to see that you wanna move it up into the driveway, but it has to be shown on the plan, and it has to be, you may have to use it.
may have to, yes.
With the setbacks of a leach field of 10 feet from a lot line, how would you put it in that driveway that's only 20 feet wide?
No, all the way up in that triangular area.
Oh, way up,
Way-
way up at the very top, okay.
It would require a pump to send it up there.
Oh, it, okay, and that was the next question I was going to ask, that no wells are shown on
I
a
believe when
budding.
there's town water, which there is, I believe there's water in that neighborhood. I don't believe drinking water wells can.
All right, anyway, that was one question.
You can't.
The other question, because I know Betsy has a lot of the same ones, and she's better at it than I am. the height of the walls, the block walls.
Yeah.
What are the heights of them?
I think they get up to,
And there are no specs, you know, usually we like to have the, what materials you are using.
right,
Because if they are by any chance gonna have any footings, you're so close to the limit of work, you really can't dig a footing. And anything over 4 feet has to have a footing.
not if it's the
The
modular
interlocking,
wall.
okay. Again, if we had the specs, then we could concur with that.
Yeah, the area right here at the bottom of these steps is 21.4, and that's at the 17 contour, so it's
4 feet.
a little over 4 feet.
Okay. And I know Betsy's gonna touch on
How
the,
do you know it's interlocking wall?
hmm?
It doesn't say.
Well, we don't know. So this is, I'm sure, gonna get continued, so you know that these are questions we always ask, top of wall, perk test, septic,
Design,
I mean,
drainage
septic design, drainage design, you know, sort of an atrophic plan. We're missing some information that would make it a lot easier to know what we're talking about and not be here so long. And the other question is, you don't have any calculations on the existing structure, you say 0. So the shed is
Yeah,
not
that
considered a
was-
structure. I know it doesn't need a building permit, but was it ever permitted to be? Because you cannot have a shed without a primary structure on a lot.
That I don't know if it was ever permitted.
So I'm sure vegetation was cleared, so,
And at one time, there was a primary structure. There was a house, before the subdivision, there were several houses on this entire property.
okay.
I don't know how long that shed has been there.
Okay, so the proposed structures, parking and paving, we have no calculations. There's none on your sheet. I'm glad.
Yeah, there were some notes that we didn't finish up.
Okay, Betsy, it's yours now.
Well, so, moving on from that same subject, what is the square footage of the structure?
2,804 square feet.
Sir?
If the owner's present and wants to speak, you'd have to go up to the podium. The public will get the opportunity to speak after everything else is covered, so please be patient. So. Nancy?
2,804.
Is the square footage of the structure? And so,
For the footprint,
for the footprint of the house,
The footprint,
including the deck,
include the deck, Tom?
including the deck.
Okay, thank you.
Parking and paving?
Frankly, if it's by zoning, if it's not paved, it's 0, because there are 2 parking spaces in the garage.
so the 5,000 square feet disturbance includes a house and a 10-foot buffer, which you're gonna give us, I'm sure.
Includes the house, part of the septic, part of the driveway, the drainage, the retaining wall steps. Actually, those steps are outside. Those steps are outside your jurisdiction, frankly. They're outside the riverfront area.
But the 50, you
Mhm.
are planning to disturb in this,
That
tonight,
limit of work is
5,100?
drawn out as 5,000 or 5,100 square feet.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm concerned about the size of this structure in this lot. And also about the distance to the limit of work. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. Do you have natural heritage?
No.
They
Down-
didn't have to do it?
Natural
Yeah.
heritage is lower on the site, isn't it, Tom?
Way down, if I went back to the, don't have it
They didn't
up
need a
here,
letter?
but The first one I did that showed the odd-shaped lot, it's way down on a part of the lot that's all salt marsh.
Okay. What's your depth to groundwater here?
We're at elevation 20, and the groundwater is approximately 18 feet.
18 feet? Okay, and my other concern, and this has to do with, and you actually, I would have given you a benefit of the doubt, but you actually did it yourself. I didn't want to count all the trees and all the diameter breast height, but
Yeah.
with a really sandy environment,
Mhm.
all these trees are playing a huge role.
Mhm.
Especially, so your septic system, you're not considering a nitrogen reduction septic system?
Not considering it, no.
Would you consider it? Don't you think it would,
Not up to me to consider it.
don't you think it would be this would be a very appropriate place for one?
This is in an area where it would, this should meet the requirements for a lot being built in a zone 2 of a public water supply that is not more than 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet of area, and the subdivision as a whole is limited to the number of bedrooms, and this just, happens to be the one that can do 4 bedrooms rather than 3. The owner is here and he can consider it.
Well, I'd also definitely consider putting more trees in.
Mhm.
Figure someplace on that lot where you can plant some more trees. And that's all.
Or not? Mr. Robbins?
I'm good.
Steve?
I just wanted to thank everyone for their comments. We don't often receive comments on plans, and I appreciate your consideration of various elements of the plan. I don't have any other questions I'd like to hear.
Peter?
No further questions?
Mark?
I have no comments.
I have a couple of questions. I think you addressed the first one though, but I'm gonna ask it again. Is the septic proper, can't go up in that upper area
It could,
with a pump system?
with a pump system to go up there, yeah.
Would your client be open to that? We're gonna continue, so I'm asking you to consider that and/or some form of a D-night system. Do we know if any of the other houses in this subdivision are 4-bedroom?
I don't know that, actually, I haven't done that research.
You'll get a chance. Please. Suspects for retaining wall, limit of work you're gonna address, and the alternative analysis. Okay. Motion before we open the public. We usually do, don't we?
Well, a continuance,
We're gonna have a continuance anyway.
yeah, we can.
What?
I'll
Would
just
you like a
open it.
continuance?
Oh, yeah.
Public.
Yeah, so I'd like to see what else might have to be.
But we usually will put the motion on the table.
We usually put the motion
For
on
the
the floor, Tom,
continuance.
so.
Open up the comments.
So are you asking for a continuance?
How long would it take, Tom, to get a drainage design, the septic design, looking at the alternative analysis, looking at the scope of the project compared to the surrounding neighborhood, how it fits in with the character of that neighborhood, looking at the question, Jamie raised the question, you'll need to talk to Tom Botter, the town assessor, how many homes in the subdivision already have 4 bedrooms and how those were achieved through the planning department if there is a restriction on that. So I think Tom, the town planner, is gonna need to get involved, or we'll have to have a discussion with him. You're gonna need to give us the spec on the wall. How much time do you need for that, Tom?
Need, 2 weeks of working time, and get it in a week ahead of time.
Right, I'm trying to find my calendar. I lost it.
Looking at the 18th of September? That'll give you 2 weeks' working time. Can you get your information in by the 4th? Because then you could have the 11th, but that's 3 weeks out. But all the information would need to be in 2 weeks. And you got Labor Day in there too.
So what's the date, 2 weeks from today?
2 weeks from today would be the 4th, and that's when we would need all the information in. I'm assuming Teresa's gonna be preparing a landscape plan. So we'll need that information as
I knew there'd be writing on the
well.
wall, I had to ask them to talk to Teresa.
What?
I knew there'd be writing on the wall, or saw the writing on the wall, I asked Osgoods to talk
Yeah,
to
okay.
Teresa about it.
So do you
yes,
need maybe the 18th? Is that a better date
She
for
said it'd
you?
be better for the 18th.
Yep, okay, that's fine with me.
So at the request of the applicant, I'll make a motion to continue to the 18th.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mark, you have a comment?
I just wondered, as we're talking about septics, do the other houses in this area have IA systems?
Not that I know of, but they might. I don't know.
You might wanna check with the Board of Health. You may wanna check with the Board of Health, just to see how many other additional houses in that area or in that subdivision may or may not have an IA system.
Go ahead, Mark.
That's all.
Kevin, you had something?
I just, you had mentioned something about pavement and perhaps a partial pavement in the driveway. And I'm just wondering if you could tie that down so we'd know how much, what is now not impervious.
Well, what I was referring to was these notes that weren't all filled in are zoning notes, not conservation notes. Frankly, I mean, all of the driveways outside your jurisdiction, for one thing, but the zoning. Structures, paving, and parking, and so if the driveway was paved, then the driveway area would count as paving. And if there was no garage, then we always count 2 9x18 parking spaces towards paving and parking. But since there's a 2-car garage, so there's no additional parking needed, say this is a turnaround area. We always credit each house with two parking spaces. So technically by zoning, if that's a gravel driveway, not paved, then there is no parking and paving that has to be added to the size of the structure for that table. But if it was in your jurisdiction, which some of it is, in the Riverfront area, that would be counted, well, I don't know how, I mean, if it's in an A zone, gravel, you would count it. I don't know if you count it in a B zone, but we can count that as coverage, for the conservation, calculations also.
Any further comments from the board? Okay, we'll open up for public comment. If you'd like to speak, please come up to the podium and state your name for the record, and please stay on point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Edward Kirk. I'm an attorney with an office in Osterville. I'm representing Downings who live at 68 Ostrom. It's the lot on the subdivision plan directly behind this property. I just had a couple of general comments to make. They were somewhat clarified, or at least the subject of the most recent dialogue here. Seems the two elements when we're dealing with the riverfront, one is the 5,000 square foot limitation of disturbed area, and then the extent to which such disturbance would have any adverse impact on the interests which the Act is designed to preserve. From looking at the plan as it was originally presented, I could not tell where the 5,000 square feet was located and how it was calculated. I know that Tom Bunker has use numbers in his narrative. But I think what really needs to happen is for the engineer's plan to actually show where the 5,000 square feet is, so everybody knows what we're talking about. And then you can discuss whether or not that disturbance does in fact have any adverse impact. So just to sort of repeating the same point from a different perspective, I didn't know whether the limit of work, including the disturbance of 5,000 square feet, was limited by the line around the house, or whether it extends further down towards the wetland area. So I'm understanding that that's going to be clarified, at least that's my understanding. The other question is, I'm not too sure whether or not the regulations, as they're drafted, allow a mixing and matching, so that if you're over 5,000 square feet, if you're at 5,600, you can find another place in that area or in that lot and do something with it and then subtract it. I'm just not clear at this point, not prepared to say that they can do it or they can't, but I think that's the second question that I had. Arlene Wilson from A.M. Wilson is here. She has submitted some more detailed information than I've provided, and I believe she'd like to offer those comments to the commission at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Arlene Wilson, A.M. Wilson Associates. Also here for Ms. Downing, who is the owner of 68 Ostrom. I have paper copies of the report that I emailed, if anybody wants them. Absolutely.
I didn't get it.
Is it another Windex?
No, it wasn't even a Windex. I didn't get an email that had this attachment to
You
it.
had to be in this country to get it. That was part of the problem.
It came, Betsy, it came in this, it
I
came
got
in late.
plenty of emails when I
It
was
came
in
in, it
England.
came in this afternoon, I think, I'm not sure if,
It
I
came
thought
in
she
late.
forwarded, it came in late.
Late, yeah.
So you probably just didn't see it.
I have one.
It was forwarded to the entire commission as a board. We didn't delete you from that list.
I didn't have it when I was out in the site, was I?
No, because you didn't have it, because we didn't have it when you were out in the site.
So, thank you very much.
At what point do we not able to consider it?
Well, we can consider it.
You consider it. Oh, yeah. It came in before the public hearing. Thank you, Arlene.
This isn't from the applicant, this is from people questioning the
Yeah,
applicant.
no, you can consider it this
I
Courtney.
understand.
It's fine.
Understood.
And I'm not going to go through much of this because most of the issues that I've covered have already been touched upon. But there is one other issue that we discovered rather late this afternoon, which has another handout.
Betsy, you don't have this handout because I don't have this handout.
Thank you, Ann.
Arlene, does Tom have a copy of this one?
No,
Please make sure he gets one. Thank you. I have one for Kevin too, please, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So the problem with this is that the coastal bank line on the southerly side of the lot where Mr. Bunker had suggested there was supposed to be a 25-foot A-zone, so it's that section, was depicted quite differently on the plans that went to the Zoning Board of Appeals that allow for a reduced setback from the ACEC zone. And if you look at the graphic that I gave you, the red lines are from the variance plans and the blue lines are from these plans. The second sheet is actually the copy of the plan that went to the ZBA.
Thank you.
And you can see that the 25-foot A zone moves quite far upslope and nicks the corner of that shed. So this becomes important if you're going to require the applicant to treat the entire coastal bank with the same no disturb buffer. If that gets increased to 50 feet, that's a problem for the development as it's laid out now. We believe that the alternatives analysis is the thing that's going to give you the most information that you probably need. The way this building was designed, again, based on the information that went to the ZBA, it has essentially a full basement, and the basement floor is a little better than 2 feet higher than the 100-year flood elevation. So it could actually have living space and still conform to flood regulations without any special construction issues. The house has a main floor and a second floor as well. So, as we noted, it would be possible to significantly reduce the footprint of this house by moving some of the living space into the lower level. That lower level apparently has a walkout based on the narrative that came with the NOI. So it's going to have plenty of light, and it can be heated and ventilated, and that would allow for much smaller footprint, many fewer trees to be disturbed, helps with the problem about the retaining wall, would allow for the construction area around the building to be a full 10 feet, which would actually allow this thing to be built. This is the kind of construction where everybody is going to take a deep breath, and all of the contractors are going to be screaming and yelling through the whole process. And the chances of having incursions into areas that are not supposed to be disturbed is really significant with a job like this. So we believe that it's very important to do that. Also, there's not a lick of information about aesthetics here. That's one of your important interests. It was an interest in the designation of the ACEC. As this thing is proposed right now, all of the screening trees get taken down there, and the view to this house is going to be wide open across the salt ponds in the ACEC. One of the things that people were very concerned about, I'm old enough to remember when the ACEC designation was going in here. And although I don't live in Falmouth, I was on the Barnstable Commission and several state committees at the time. So we're glad that you've instructed the applicant to look at those issues, and we think it's very important. Thank you for your consideration.
Mr. Chairman,
Anyone else like to speak?
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
can I ask Tom a question? You know what my question's gonna be, Tom. Why did the zoning board of appeals get a plan with the coastal bank depicted on one area, and we got a plan with the coastal bank depicted in another area?
Because at the time we were preparing it for the Board of Appeals, some of that topography was based on the GIS town topography. And we didn't do a thorough, as I said before, we were mainly surveying to find the flood zone because the flood zone determines the ACEC, and that was the focus of our survey at the time, and we filled in some of the others with the town topo. Since that time, when we started doing this work, we did more topo, and I realized that this area, take the plan that has revised contours, it's not, it's less than 10-to-1 slope
Okay.
through there.
Can you write me a little narrative to that effect and submit it with the zoning board of appeals as well?
Mhm.
Thank you. I'm done. For now.
Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? Okay. We have a motion and a second for continuance till,
I'm Paul Fusil, I live at 63 Ostrom Road, so that would be directly across from the proposed possible septic system. So a couple things I've picked up in this evening's conversation was the character of the neighborhood. And if you've noticed one thing about Ostrom Road, almost exclusively every house is set back on Ostrom Road. That's kind of characteristic of that entire street. There's very little area where you'll see a clearing of trees along the roadway. Probably with the exception of that horseshoe-shaped driveway arrangement for this subdivision. That's about the only instance I can think of on that road where there's a open area. Some of the other smaller houses down the low number end of the street near Red Brook, they're closer to the road, but still, as many of them as you can imagine are quite set back. So that is kind of part of the character. So I have a little bit of a concern with this alternate plan, if it is to put the septic system up by the road, because that would involve clearing all those trees out. Have trees over your septic system, correct, Tom? Okay, and also, just correct me, I don't know the rules, you do. What are the regulations for septic systems near wells? I'm sorry, I don't know what the regulations for septic systems near wells. My well is directly across the street from that proposed
It's
area.
100 feet. If it's a potable well, it's 100 feet.
Oh, then, it's within the width of Ostrom Road plus 15 feet off. And you have, BSS has all the engineering drawings for that, because they did my engineering. They did a great job, I must say. But then there's one other thing about the character of Ostrom Road, and I don't know, is the square footage of this house, is this, I just didn't pick it up from this filing, is there 2,800, so
That's the footprint.
that's the
That's
footprint,
not the living area.
and that's not the living area. What is the living area of the house?
Three times that.
If it's 2 floors plus the walkout,
It's 3 times.
So it's probably
8,000.
twice as large as any house.
we don't have the architectural, so we don't know what the square footage, the living space is going to be.
Okay.
The Conservation Commission is concerned with the footprint on the ground, not so much
That was my
with the
concern.
living area.
That was my concern, because 60 by 60, I did the math, and I said, well, that's just the footprint.
That's just the
And I
footprint,
said,
and that's
this
what we look
This is like
at.
a 3-level house or something, so I did the math. So I started to get a little concerned. I don't know what the exact number is, and, but that was my, so there's another aspect to Ostrom Road, and I'd like to make you aware of it. And it only comes out of my interest. I'm a amateur astronomer, and Ostrom Road is one dark road in the middle of the night, and the Milky Way is the brightest thing in the sky. And I am quite blessed to have very courteous neighbors that live around me that have very low light pollution signatures. I mean, that is as dark as places that I go when I go to sky watch other places around the country. And it's actually quite remarkable for the town of Falmouth. It's quite remarkable even in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts about how dark it is out there. And I'm just trying to extrapolate. I'm thinking a house of this size, just on that plan, I'm quite concerned. It's not going to be, I imagine it's going to be a rather elaborate home. I don't know any details about it. It's their business, it's not mine. But I'm kind of concerned about the light
Light pollution?
signature. Now, something that kind of bugs me about this, it's just, you buy a property, it's, what do they say, oddly shaped or strangely shaped, or it's just, you know, and you buy it some time ago, and, you know, the expectation is that you can put something to the very limits of it. It's, you know, again, I don't own the property, I don't mean to prevent somebody doing what they're legally entitled to do. It's just, it is, there's nothing about the concept of this house that suggests environmental, for something that is so close to the environment. I live right across the street, I back up to a cedar swamp. I try to be as mindful of my cedar swamp as I can, and not try to be mindful of my, you know, I like to be a good loquation, if you want to call us that. I try to be mindful, I have a natural lawn, I don't put anything down, and, you know, I'm in the game with that, but there's nothing, and when I was building my house as well, I tried to, you know, excuse me? When I try to build my house, I try to be as mindful, went through, got very good engineering from BSS, I must say, tremendous engineering. They did a great job. We were very, I told them, I told them I would be real mindful about it, and we got a great assessment, and was very happy with it, and I had a lot of land to work with. But it seems that for something that's so close and has such a complicated, all these things going on here, I can't even follow them all, quite honestly. There's nothing about this that suggests environmental stewardship, really. It's built up to the limits of it, and that's it is. So anyway, my big concern is just what the character of the neighborhood is. I'm superbly courteous neighbors, and I think everyone in the neighborhood tries to. I watch, you know, no one cuts down trees, everybody keeps everything the way it is, they like it. That's why we all live there, so, thank you very much.
I'll just make a point of clarification. The 2,804 is the heated conditioned space total on there. And there's out of this area, there's a lot of it that's porch and garage, which is not heated or whatever, so out of the, probably not the walkout either. I mean, probably a lot of the cellar area is not. So he said that 2,804 square feet is the heated and air-conditioned space.
Tom, I don't care about the heated and air-conditioned space. I wanna
No,
know.
well, you had asked
yeah,
about the total living area.
No, I wanna know the footprint on the ground. Garage,
Right,
foundation, deck,
Walls.
stairs, you know that.
right, no.
Yeah, so I want that number next time.
Well,
okay?
we have.
Actually, I want that number a week before I see you next time.
We have the area in your jurisdiction.
That's fine.
Is 890. I mean, that's in the narrow, that's how we calculated the mitigation. Or that is of the structure, not including the steps.
Okay,
But,
so where's this 5,000's coming from that? You're telling me that structure right there, in our jurisdiction, without counting that little part of the garage, is 890 square feet?
There's a large area around it. I'll check my numbers, but that's what we
I
have.
think you'd be able to check your numbers, cause I will have engineering check this plan. Okay? No, but, Kevin just came up with a thing. That's just the area within Zone B to do your calculations. I wanna know the area within the entire riverfront. Nice catch, Kevin. See? It's good.
Holding that one.
Hmm?
Way to talk all night.
Are they gonna be?
So, square footage, as we like to see it, Tom, bird's eye view down on the ground within the riverfront. Okay? I don't care about stuff outside my jurisdiction, but within the riverfront, please, sir. Thank you.
Are there gonna be AC units or outdoor showers or anything, Tom?
Rinse stations,
Generators, all those fun things
Oh, yeah.
that get added afterwards?
generator pads.
I mean, there are no walkways shown, so I guess there's not gonna
The
be,
walkway along the side of the garage and the steps down.
that's it, okay.
On that side of the garage, outside the riverfront area, they can put AC and generator over there.
Okay.
Yeah?
Often a shower might go under the deck. I don't know if there are no plans for that on the architectural plans for a shower.
Are the architectural plans done?
There are some draft plans
good.
Tom? The setback that the variant setback that CBA let you have to the ACEC?
Yeah.
Is, normally it would be 50 feet,
Yes.
and they let you do 20 feet. So
Down to as low as 20, yes.
so where you have this setback, where you have this building setback, that's 20 feet from the 13,
Yes.
okay,
That's a variance that was given.
okay, thanks.
Any further public comment?
Did that gentleman have the number on the bedrooms in the neighborhood, out in the subdivision?
We'll check with the assessor.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Actually, Tom will check with the assessor.
To the chair.
What am I checking on?
The number of, so the subdivision, and the number of houses in the subdivision, and what bedroom count
How
they
many
have.
bedrooms?
Yep.
And how many have AI?
Correct. And how many have I? Yes, you got it, Tom. You can always call me if you forget. Because then we'll have to check with planning on how this kind of matches up with that subdivision decision, their definitive decision, so.
Right.
And if anybody got a special permit or however that goes for a four-bedroom house in this. So we'll have to check with the town planner and the zoning administrator to kind of square that away.
I'm Jay Finkel, trustee of this Peninsula Port Association. And as far as bedrooms go, there's only allowed one house to be built in all of the 6 lots with 4 bedrooms. My house was the last one built, and when we built the house, we were in front of the Conservation Committee 15, 16 years ago. But my septic system was already in the ground, and it was 18 cubic feet away from being for a 4-bedroom house. Or else I would have, if I put in my own septic system at that point, it would have been a 4-bedroom house. So there's 2 lots left in our association. Lot 4, and I believe it's Lot 2, Saunders Lot. So either one of those 2 can have a 4-bedroom house. That clarifies that. And I had one comment regarding the trees. There are like 25 trees that are gonna be cut down. I know when I was in front of the Conservation Committee 15, 16 years ago, I took down quite a few trees, and they were good-sized oak trees. And at that point in time, I had to replace probably 20 trees of good size and put in probably 50 to 60 shrubs, like blueberries, stuff like that. It was very expensive. They allowed me to put in oak trees with about, I think, a 4-inch diameter and a lot of white pines. Very expensive. So, you know, when you're taking down 25 trees, you just can't put in shrubs. That's
Or 2 trees.
Pardon?
Or they have 2 trees proposed.
4 inches worth.
Well, I got one.
Well, I mean, we made that point.
I know you did. I'm just making that comment, that's all. And that's it. You got your answer on the 3 or 4 bedrooms. Okay?
Thank you. Anyone else? Last call. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue until September 18th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tom. Jamie, did you actually call for the vote to continue it? Oh, he did.
Unanimous.
You sure? Yeah, okay.
Did everyone vote?
Yeah, okay. Susan, your recording person is trying to keep everybody on the straight and narrow. Don't raise your gavel at me.
What the business, please?
Excuse me. me, everyone, we do have another, more agenda items, so if you could take your conversations outside, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Is that what you were looking for, Russell?
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome, Russell.
You are good, Jen.
Okay, do we need to untable? No, we already did that.
Yep, we're
So,
good.
No, we haven't untabled this one. I tabled this and untabled
We have to
the other.
untable it.
Make a
Okay.
motion to untable the one we had tabled.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Just for clarity, we are doing a continued request to amend existing order of conditions. Bruno Gallinelli, Fabio LP, 117 Surf Drive, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to amend DEP 25-4322 by rearranging approved concrete patio, replacing existing gravel driveway with pavers. Mr. Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thought we were last on the agenda. Looking at 7 o'clock on the dot. For the record, Matt Costa, Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant, who is here tonight with me. Bruno's in the audience, with two of his neighbors. All right, so as you stated, this is a continued hearing. Since we were here last, we did a new existing conditions or as-built survey to collect the changes that occurred after our last survey, and added some additional information to the plan. Specifically, we added details about the built-in patio area. Oh, can you see that? It's on your plans. So, what we have done is Bruno's looked over everything and proposing to reduce the footprint, the total scope of what is being planned. Now, if you remember from being out there, what's under construction right now is this built-in kitchen area with this fireplace. And it's a tall fireplace. And you can see from this picture, it gives you the full view. And then this was designed to be countertop area. And this area was originally to extend this way on the patio. So Bruno's elected to reduce the total countertop areas, so there'll be 2 4-foot long, 37-inch high countertops on either side of the fireplace, and proposing to reduce the fireplace height by a total of 3 feet. And that will be done by taking off 2 top course of the blocks and then lowering the entire fireplace itself another foot from underneath, so the whole structure would be reduced. This work is taking place on a proposed patio area, which we were originally had proposed to reconstruct in this area as part of that original approval, and so we relocated the patio area over to here. It's actually a reduced patio size from the previously approved patio area. This is within the velocity zone, but this is a fixed kitchen area that has been reduced in size. It's landscaping, and it does meet the performance standards. So we would respectfully request that you would issue the order of conditions based on this plan and these changes. Both Bruno and I are happy to answer any questions, any particular questions about how the grill will be constructed, or this would be constructed or changed. Bruno can answer for you. That's it.
Mr. Chairman, yes, Matt. A couple of things, Matt, and I know I've heard some of the board members, from some of the board members, and it has to do with the way some of the things are labeled on your plan. specifically the existing raised platform, the existing rinse station, the existing stockade fence, the existing picket fence, and the existing concrete landing, none of which were actually permitted in the original project. So next time, if you could clarify that they're existing, but, you know, looking for permission after the fact, that would help clarify to the board, because I have heard from some of our commissioners that are concerned about where you're labeling things. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. That said, my comments haven't changed regarding the outdoor kitchen. I know how some of you feel, but I just feel this is in the velocity zone. It is a hazard in the velocity zone, and the staff does have some concerns with that. My other comment is the existing picket fence in the front was never permitted. It is in the velocity zone, as well as the brand new stockade fence on the side. So, I know some commissioners really do struggle with having fencing in velocity zone. It does, create debris. So that's something else I'm just pointing out. And those are the only comments do I have. Do we have any other comments? No? I mean, I'm pretty consistent the way my comments were the last time. Whether you raise, you know, you shrink the height of that stove 2 feet, 3 feet, it's still a massive structure in our velocity zone. That's it.
So for clarification, we're looking for this after the fact approval of the platform.
Yeah, so we're also, yeah,
Patio, the driveway, all the stuff that's already been done, correct?
correct. I mean, that's how it should be labeled.
Well,
It would be after the
there's-
fact.
The cobblestone driveway, we did discuss with staff prior to doing it. We added it to this plan, so there would be, or to the original plan we filed with the amended order, so that the plan would cover everything. So when they did the compliance, that would be included in it.
But
Right, so
not the raised platform,
Right.
the rinse station, the picket fence, the other concrete landing, the brand new stockade fence.
Yeah, I didn't dispute any
Yeah.
of that. just
No,
the-
I know. And I think just for clarification, next time, Matt, if you could just put seeking after the fact approval or something. Because like I said, I have heard from a few of the commissioners that are just kind of, why is it labeled existing? Technically it is, but it wasn't, you know, and if it's labeled as
Permitted.
after the fact, then at compliance time, you know, my staff doesn't have to have the issue, you know. We'll address everything. So, that's it.
Yes, could you please go through a picture showing the stack? Previous picture. And where are these two four-foot long benches going now?
They'd be right here, and then right on that side.
What's gonna be between the bench and the house?
Nothing. Nothing, it's open, it will be open.
It'll be open, so there's no velocity flow
Right.
barrier there at all?
Right, it's been reduced to just being down where the kitchen, where this grill area.
No water barrier?
Correct.
Thank you.
Peter?
No questions.
Steve?
No question.
I got a bunch of problems with this. There was a project right around the corner from this that wanted to put up a stockade fence. We turned them down. Numerous in that area.
Oh, the Zen Garden.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
We shot them down. We told them, no, you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it was just done, I mean, everything was changed. Was the original driveway approved with pavers?
No.
Gravel.
Land's right there.
Hmm?
Land's right in front of Betsy.
The original driveway was crushed stone.
Crushed them.
Okay,
It had a
So now-
cobblestone apron.
that was what it was approved. And administratively, you approved,
I can't remember, how did we do that? Yeah, I think we did. I mean, it's outside any sort of buffer area, so it wasn't really
Trigger
a
any-
buffer zone kind of issue for us. If it had been in the buffer zone area, we would obviously have come back to you, but,
Or if it triggered mitigation.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it didn't generate any mitigation requirements. It's something the board would have allowed had it been approved proposed the first time.
And it was
So-
it was a cobblestone apron at the beginning, so it was just,
okay, I mean, the staff approved it, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. I just don't remember, I remember this project, and I don't remember that part of it. The other thing I have a problem with this, the contractor, landscaper contractor that did this, I mean, I think we've had issues with them before. About 3 blocks away to the east, I think it was a dune that got wiped out down off of Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
You would think the guy would have learned his lesson on that one and said, you know, maybe we should talk to Jen. This is why, to me, it's just, it seems like more and more we're seeing between conservation and zoning. People just go ahead and do it. Oh, if you get caught, then we'll deal with it then, but probably be okay. Me personally, I'm not even gonna vote to approve, so that's how I feel. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry. Does the square footage calculation for the patio include that wall?
Yes, it's all on the patio.
It's on the patio?
Yep.
All
They poured the
inclusive.
patio first and then built on.
And it's all gonna be connected, I mean, the 2 countertops and the fireplace.
Yes.
And behind that hose reel, it looks like there's concrete there. Did I misunderstand what you just addressed about it being open?
Well,
Well, actually, it's on the plans that we proposed. There's 3 boxes. One is the chimney and 2 boxes on the side that are attached. And basically, the 8 feet on the left side of the chimney is completely going to be removed and open.
I don't mean outboard, I mean right behind, immediately behind,
That
right where
hose
you see
reel.
that
I
column.
think I think I can clarify that, Mr. Chairman. What Mark was asking is whether that wall went all the way to the house. There is patio there, but I think Mark's question was wall. So would the floodwaters be able to end run around that wall? Was that it, Mark? Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Okay.
Yeah, because there is patio there, but it's not gonna be a wall there.
There's about 11 feet space between the end of the chimney and
Yeah,
actually.
it's this side of the column,
So
okay.
what you're seeing here is gonna be modified.
Yeah.
All right. I really don't wanna beat a dead horse, but I am gonna reiterate everybody's comments that, you know, it's the after-the-fact stuff is just,
Killing every board right now. Yep.
it's wrong. And in my opinion, calling existing raised platform, existing rent station is just disingenuous. That's my comment.
It is existing, but it's not permanent.
Well,
No, I
Yeah,
understand your point, I'm just saying, it's
So-
existing, but it's unpermitted.
because the day that he went there, it was there, so he called it existing. I get it, I get that.
Yeah.
I just think that's being,
Correct.
my word today is disingenuous. I'm just telling you how I think.
We had talked about it last time, about the shower
Mhm.
and being added to the plan, so
Where's the
I went
original
out and
plan?
added it. I was not thinking
Where's the
of
original plan?
anything other than just adding it. I wasn't thinking of trying to get something or misrepresent anything.
That's his.
He's done it.
I have
You know,
just,
I think, it sounds as if, and I don't think people are trying to say that you're trying to necessarily deceive us, but I think the point is, come up with a better term for this. My question is, and it was something that came up, it was something that's of concern with the whole decision, is there's no velocity zone on your plan.
It's all in the velocity
It's
zone.
all in the
note-
velocity
The note
zone.
says it's in the velocity zone. It's non-mappable.
So the entire thing is in the velocity zone?
Correct.
The entire lot is?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
there you go, Courtney.
On the far, it's the right turn, so.
Oh, wait, Courtney, there's some revisions. I have one question, Mr. Chairman. Matt, is that, what kind of chimney and grill area is that gonna be? Is it gonna be propane, or are you gonna pump natural gas into it? Are you pumping water over there? Is there gonna be a sink?
He already has natural
Oh,
gas
I'm
there.
sorry.
I think I can answer the more technical question. If I can build within the enclosure of concrete, it's gonna be natural gas. If I cannot build, then we have to do it earlier. When I embarked on doing this grill area, I thought I was doing the proper thing by surrounding with concrete reinforced steel, which would withstand velocity area much better than 3 or 4 floatable cabinets, which that's what's going to be if I really can get it. I would have to have a floatable cabinet for the fireplace, for the barbecue, one for the garbage and being recycled, and one for the grill. They're going to be aluminum, I still think that the best approach to this would be to enclose them in steel reinforced block. And instead, structural engineer could provide those things that they could withstand more than 100 miles an hour wind. Floatable 36, 40-inch barbecue is going to fly anytime we have wind of 40, 50 miles an hour. That's the reason why I did that, but I want to move on with this thing. I don't want to prognosticate this. I want to continue with the landscaping. The place has been a mess. So I want to vote on this, whether I can have it floatable or I can have it with concrete. And then we'll address every other issue, but I want to go on with this house. The house is a mess. I wasn't be able to do the landscaping or finish the project. And that's basically what I'm here tonight for.
Jen, did you have an issue with the, whether it would be gas or not?
What was that?
Did you have an issue with the fact it would be gas or not?
No, I wasn't sure if there would be an issue if it would be gas or not. I
'Cause
wasn't sure if it was allowed.
Yeah,
Is it fine? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, this is my concern. First of all illegal work is rather upsetting. But the slope I don't want to slide down on this is if we have patios, think about this, impervious surface patio, all they're doing is putting all this stuff on this impervious patio. So it seems okay, because we're not interrupting any more native species or anything else. The whole purpose of houses built on pilings is so that the water can flow in and out, not have re-rod, reinforced, 1,000 PSI concrete in the V-zone. It's deflection. That's what the whole purpose of everybody complaining about the houses being on stilts, but FEMA makes that happen. Now, this is a foundation wall, literally. It's if you were doing a crawl space in a flood zone, this is as big as a crawl space in a flood zone. The water isn't just going to run around all of this. It's gonna smash into that. That's the whole reason we put them on pilings. I wanna see every single thing that was illegally installed off the site, and that's the end of it. That's my vote. There is no amendment of let you have it, chop it down, move it out, put a little floating or a little table or whatever. It all leaves. Because you do it illegally doesn't mean you get it. And if it was something that was permitted that was illegally done, possibly. Well, not possibly, we would, because it's just that you didn't ask for it in your original order. We would never have let this go through. We never would have let concrete walls, we wouldn't have had fences, we wouldn't have had rinse stations. These are all in the V-zone, the entire lot. And that's the end of the story for me. You know where my vote's going.
Well, on the existing patio, to be relocated, there was a wall, a 3-foot wall. And
Not
I said,
shown on the plan.
Not shown on the
Yes,
plan.
it's shown plan. To be relocated, and there's a wall on the older plans.
No, I'll take it.
No way.
Let me get the order, let me get the original one. Matt, do you remember if it's on there or not? Dated
I think the
17,
patio may have been raised a little bit. I
13,
can't recall.
September 13, 17, let me find that. Looking at September 20.
Well, first off, the patio would be on the other side.
Talking about this wall right here.
This was, nor was the fence.
Can I see what you're looking at, Mr. Chair?
I hate to tell you, but you're really not supposed to comment, and neither was Russ. You're not on the quorum.
Who, me?
No, Russ.
Oh, okay.
Courtney.
So they're talking about this little thing that they never called out the height.
What?
Yeah. So that was not given a height to us, sir.
So,
But we have pictures of that. Original
You have
we
pictures when it was built.
take. No, this
No,
was
no.
pre-existing.
So,
Well, this is
just
a
to
little bit
clarify.
bigger than what was there, sir. And sir, I do have to say, I know you're frustrated with the process, but this is not the board's
Our
board's
doing.
fault. You undertook a project without seeking approval, and this is what happens. I mean, you know, so
That's what
I
I-
understand
I-
you're frustrated, but
I know, I was
you
told.
kind of brought it upon yourself, sir, okay? So we'll let the board just do what the board does. He's right here, Kevin.
I know, but it's not called out as anything.
Yeah, it's not called out as anything. Can somebody make sure that little plan gets back in there,
Yes.
please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
there you go, Betsy.
Made it point.
How do you know how do you know that's a wall?
You don't know, it's a wall.
It looks like it's a black
That-
line. It doesn't say wall, it
Where does
doesn't
it
say
say wall?
anything.
Where's
Where
the
does it
wall?
even say wall?
Where's the wall?
Doesn't.
Existing patio to be rebuilt.
Well, the patio, the existing patio had a wall surrounding. I assume that wall could have been rebuilt. It's basically longer than what the wall that I'm proposing.
see that.
And if, even with this proposal in front of us, that 3-foot wall would still be there all around?
No, that wall would only be much shorter than the one that was on the existing patio.
The 3-foot wall would still be there? This,
No, that's gone. The wall and the patio never got rebuilt, just
No.
got relocated.
no.
It doesn't show it in
I'm
the
sorry.
picture. Do you have a picture of
This,
that wall?
this drawing here,
Yes,
okay? This outline, you've got built a 3-foot wall, right?
yes.
Right now.
That's what you see.
Today, like when I drove by it the other day, it's still there.
Yeah, because I was told not to do anything.
Wait a minute, okay? So, yeah,
No, keep going.
huh? I'm just wondering,
There's no picture of that.
reducing the size
Can't really do.
somewhat
There's the little concrete wall
of
right
the
there, right there.
cooking section
How big will it-
does not alter
That's over here now.
the fact
Well, I know,
that
'cause he
you've
changed this
built
to here. He's saying this is even
and
here.
a structure of some magnitude in a velocity zone
Definitely more.
that, first off, was not approved. And we've told you from the first time you appeared in front of us that it is against our rules. You're not asking for a slight, what's the word I'm looking for? The small,
De minimis.
de minimis. Thank you.
We're not using,
Okay.
we're not using that, Kevin.
Well, it's the only thing I can think of, is this is the same situation, okay? It's not de minimis. Not that de minimis matters one way or the other. It's against our rules. You're not here asking for us to waive some small rule. This is a safety rule, and this is something we impose on everybody.
How much footage did you get?
Get off my high heels here. Obviously, and I think I was the one to let you know the last time you were here, the votes aren't here.
I want to take it down. I just want a permission to take the whole thing down.
Take the whole thing down?
Yes.
We'll need to get something in writing from you, Matt. Can't do that on the fly.
You wanna take the whole thing down?
That's-
Uh,
It's
Seems
gonna
like
be,
we're not getting anywhere.
no one here's gonna stop you.
And the fences.
good, because that's what we're gonna probably recommend anyway.
At this point, he needs permission, though,
Yeah.
Kevin.
Hmm?
He
He needs permission to knock it down. I don't think anyone's gonna stop him from doing that.
Courtney?
Revised plan would be the existing patio with nothing on.
It's not in the same place. It's on the other
That's fine.
side.
The swap zone.
He's not on the quorum.
Oh, no.
I mean, you can approve it conditioned on a revised plan.
I don't know.
Courtney,
The
were you
little
here
sheets in
last
there.
time? Were you here the last
No, no,
time we-
no, Courtney's not on the quorum.
No, he was not.
Oh, okay. So, just zip it. We still have the issue of the
Here,
fencing,
see,
specifically the picket fence in the front
Oh, okay.
and, the stockade fence on the side.
The stockade fence on the side, it's existing stockade fence. It was permitted 15 years ago.
It was on the plan.
Okay. So it's just a replacement? Okay,
Well, that's what I wanted to see, was if it was on the existing
existing,
conditions, and
yeah.
it was.
okay, that's fine. How about the picket fence in front wasn't?
No, it was
Picket
not.
fence wasn't, but the stone wall was.
Yeah, okay, fine. The picket fence isn't maybe an issue then?
I went to the town and I was told if I built a 4 fence or less, picket fence, you don't even need a permit. That's what I was told. They gave me a flyer.
You don't anywhere but in
Well, you don't need a
conservation.
building permit.
That's a building
but-
permit, but you do need a conservation permit.
I realized that on the last meeting. I like to continue with the landscape, if I can remove that and live happily ever after, and then I'll have some floating devices there in the future. I just don't want to prolong this agony.
So we need to continue this.
I mean, it is a small picket fence, water is gonna flow through it in
It
this area.
flows away.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a V zone.
Problem
if
is,
it-
Matt, is right around the corner, there was a property that wanted to have a fence around the property in a velocity zone, and the board said no.
We never allow
You
fences
know,
in
there,
V zone.
there'd be a big distinction between a stockade versus a picket, just like a split rail fence,
Do
you
you
know?
think the 38 Hurricane really decided if it was a picket or a stockade, or maybe the water will kind of go through one? It blows away. It's in the V zone. The 38 Hurricane took Surf Drive, Bob took most of Surf Drive away.
I'm well aware of the powers
Problem is,
of
he's
water.
allowed to have that one on, down the side.
Well, we don't know if it was permitted, it might have been
Oh,
there.
well,
I mean, it was
Think it was-
existing.
Big enough hurricane will blow away houses, and we allow houses.
My
What?
big concern is power
Not in
line.
V zones, unless they're on.
We're allowed houses in V zones, we can
That-
build
yes,
houses in V
totally
zones.
built on, above, never mind.
Well, the
You wanna
analogy
put
you're
the
making, I
fence
don't
on
think is
top of
fair.
some stilts?
Matt,
Well, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay,
if the board wants to close it, we can, and then we'll just condition a revised plan with the removal of everything that you don't want, and we'll just vote it, okay? I don't think we're gonna get anywhere
No.
tonight, I don't
so you
think,
think we should close it?
yes.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second.
Maybe you have somebody in the audience that would like to say something.
I'm getting there.
Oops.
I
Yes,
understand.
sir.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion from the board? Hearing none. Are there any public comments?
Good evening, my name is Henry Herman, and my house is the adjoining corner house to the left of that lot, 109 Surf Drive. I'd like to make a few comments to your surprise, in support of my new neighbor, Mr. Gallinelli. But before I do that, I'd like to ask one question of the board, because I was sitting in the back and I didn't quite hear. There was a discussion about picket fence. Was the discussion about, I can't really see, there's a I don't know, when you refer to a picket fence, do you mean the fence running from Surf Drive to Bywater Court?
No.
No.
Okay. That, I have a wooden picket fence running from the front to the back that I really like to play it by the book. Many years ago, I appeared before this board with an engineer's plan and applied for a permit for that fence, and it was granted. So if the board requests, I can dig through the old files and produce the engineer's plan. I think it was Mike McGrath who did the plan, and we had 2 hearings on it.
We're
It
not
was
talking
approved.
about that fence, sir.
Pardon?
We're not talking about that fence. We're talking about the fence along Surf Drive, in the front of the house.
In front of mine?
No?
No.
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 Because that one was approved too in the late 80s. So, okay, I just wanted to clarify that because I didn't know which fence was being discussed. Now, on Mr. Gallinari's situation here, I understand that the board has has considerable concern about the timing of this thing. I'm not going to comment on that. That would be presumptuous of me. All I want to say is this. First, I fully understand the issue of not deflecting flood waters in this area. If you look at the Surf Drive or Google it or see an aerial thing, my corner lot, I gave up, when I bought the house, I gave up a substantial portion of my front lawn to build the fence well inside my property so that we could develop a dune, which developed. I made sure that the dune grass had a chance to grow, so instead of a low concrete seawall, I had a big dune in front of my property. Mr. Bruno Gallinelli's lot has a low concrete seawall in front of it on Surf Drive. He didn't construct that. It was constructed long before he bought it. I'd like to point out there's nothing, in my view, and I really, if I can say so myself, know quite a bit about conservation, especially ocean front and marine conservation. I've received substantial national awards for my work, including saving the waters of Cape Cod from radioactive contamination. I did that work at my own expense for several years. So I just want to tell you I'm coming here as an environmentalist. There's nothing more dangerous than these low concrete seawalls. So this problem that has been discussed in detail today is really, I think, a minor aspect of it. You're already dealing with a property with a concrete seawall in front of it. Second, as far as I can understand this plan, and I can't really see it well with my eyes, I have an eye problem and the thing, the bulk of the structure that properly concerns the board is at right angles to the ocean, perpendicular to the ocean. So I really don't think that poses any kind of appreciable flood deflection error. I think there's very little horizontal concrete structures for that cooking area, as far as I can read the thing. So I would suggest to the board that you consider what I've said about if the bulk of the thing is perpendicular to the ocean, it's a stretch, I think, to think that it's going to be an appreciable. The gentleman there, I can't read his name, who used the Latin term de minimis. That's a term that lawyers love to bandy about the situation. But this is, I think, as far as flood deflection goes, if you're looking at the vertical part of it, it is de minimis flood deflection. Now I'm going to speak, and I don't want to try your patience any longer. I want to speak about my personal concerns as the abutter and homeowner. Looking at the alternatives, if Bruno is not allowed to build something there, he's just going to use mobile stuff on the patio. He's going to be using, grills. Instead of having safe and natural gas, he's going to have propane tanks. He can move those in and out from his structure. If a real storm comes, and he's not here all the time, I'm more concerned, and I think all neighbors should be more concerned as well. We had that scare with a tornado scare. We were just frightened just 2 or 3 weeks ago. These sudden gales, and I lived here when Hurricane Bob came. I think it's much more dangerous to have these huge mobile on wheels, on casters, burners and refrigerators and gas paraphernalia that's standing there that can be actually picked up and hurled across in pieces. So all I'm saying is here, I would ask that you consider, if you think that this is sort of an evil, perhaps consider that's the lesser of evils for the immediate environment. I'm speaking now selfishly as the abutter. And as an environmentalist, I think that while it's certainly correct that you should eschew flood water deflecting structures in the V-zone, after all, that's why they call it the V-zone, that in this case, perhaps if one restructured the plan and minimized everything for the cooking area except the vertical wall, some compromise could be reached. I'd like to thank you for your attention and time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have
Thank you.
questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
Any further public comments?
Good evening, my name is Steve Karras. I live diagonally behind Mr. Bruno on Bywater Court. And what Mr. Herman just stated about the grills on wheels, if there's nothing to secure and anchor the grill, the wind that we did have in the hurricane, not the hurricane, the tornado, which we didn't even get. I have a deck on my roof, and the next morning, my table, my wrought iron table was picked up and tipped over, and I usually have concrete blocks on the table to hold it, and I couldn't believe it, so we must have had one heck of a gust. And my only concern about what Mr. Bruno did, where he made a beautiful home, it improved the area, but if there's any way, I would rather have him have that lowered, the fireplace lowered down, and have just that securing wall for his cooking equipment. That's the only thing I would ask. Other than that, he's done a great job. I'm not talking about legally or anything, I'm just saying he's done a very great job for our whole neighborhood. And I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I just want to add one more thing. Prior to the last meeting, I presented 6 letters from all my abutters that they were in favor of having this grill area the way it is.
Thank
That's all.
Thank you.
Letters there to the office.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second.
Huh?
We have a motion and a second.
Yeah, we do. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to close the hearing and take it under advisement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, other business. Why isn't other business last?
I'll make it last. I think I told her to put it at the end of the agenda, so.
Let's just get through it quickly.
Yes, ma'am. Other business, elections.
I nominate Jamie Matthews as chairman.
Second.
Can I
What?
do this?
All in favor?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Wow,
I
thank you.
nominate Russ Robbins as vice chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Russ for vice chair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Okay, good.
And I nominate,
Seconded each one of them.
Betsy nominated each one, and.
No,
No,
Oh,
Russ-
No.
Russ nominated, I seconded.
And this
I
one
nominated-
I seconded.
Maury seconded.
got it.
Well, Maury didn't do it.
Yes, she did.
Maury,
I'm not
Maury.
here.
Oh,
I'm not
yeah, yeah,
here.
the new
Oh,
girl.
that's Maury. I'm sorry.
I'm a quick learner, though. Sam, right
You
on.
should ask Sam about that.
I nominate Betsy to be the keeper of records.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm putting that on my CV.
Keeper of records.
We do now.
We just voted.
All right, vote orders. Okay,
Make a
We have
motion.
to-
Oh, I can go. I wasn't here for this.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
bye,
for
Beth.
wasn't either.
5 minutes.
I wasn't either, but I feel guilty getting up, so I'm gonna sit here and stay. So I can learn how to
Okay.
get back in the swing.
All right.
It's
Order
Dock Road.
conditions. Town of Falmouth, care of Greg Frazier, 55 Old Dock Road, West Falmouth, Mass.
It's a vote ramp.
Motion to accept.
All pretty standard stuff. Time of year restriction?
I do wanna put,
Me either.
yeah, well, if there's an appropriate time of year restriction, we'll put the toy in. We've built boat ramps before, they're not gonna use a cofferdam, they're gonna use a silt curtain.
Right.
The only thing I wanna add is they are storing boats along that area, so maybe, we can kind of condition some signage not to put the boats on the marsh, cause they're all right in that area, so if we're rebuilding the boat ramp anyway, you know.
Did you talk to them about having the floats settle into the,
Oh, yeah, the float's settling. Who did we leave off with that? Where did we
Feet.
leave off with that?
I read that they were gonna put stops on it.
Yeah, float stops.
See, I read the minutes. I read the minutes. I
Yeah,
wasn't here,
I'll
but
try-
I was.
You know what, I'll work,
I got a question before you leave.
I'll work with the harbor master to keep the floats off, we'll try to do our
Okay.
best. I mean, I don't know what we're gonna be able to do there, but we'll try to do our best.
Dredge.
Practical.
Yeah,
Take them
not
over to
dredging.
clock.
Practicable.
Jen,
That was it?
there was no cofferdams, right?
No,
No.
there
Silk
wasn't, they're gonna do, a weighted silk curtain around it.
Okay, I thought, yeah, all
Yeah.
right, I thought.
No,
I
I
read
said
the
we
minutes.
usually, you know,
I read the
instead
minutes
of the
from the
cofferdam,
meetings.
they're
I know-
doing the
I
weighted
know what you
silk
guys
curtain.
did.
We allowed them to do the weighted silk curtain in Quoit Bay,
Yep,
so,
and it worked, they didn't have any problems with it, right?
Excuse me.
I don't think they've done it yet. That one? Yeah,
Walkway was redone.
See
Yes.
it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My
Went down
staff.
by
Well, they had the
Edwards
problem with the
Boatyard,
pitch,
so
No,
but-
no, no, no.
White's
Edwards
Landing?
Boatyard, we had them do a silk curtain.
Right.
Okay,
White's
and it
Landing,
worked,
that's all
they didn't
done.
have any problems, that's the one I was
Yeah,
thinking.
they didn't do a cofferdam out there.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they had no problems, so
Yeah.
this won't hold, I'm just worried that
They had a little
they
elevation.
get
problem
rolling
at
and all of a
White's
sudden they
Landing.
can't do it. You know, hey, we need the cofferdam, they gotta come back, but then you're putting it off until next spring
Yeah.
almost, you know?
Yeah.
Later.
So is there latitude in that? Can
I
the
mean, we can write
administrator,
a
can staff
condition
make that
that
decision?
if we can write a condition that if a cofferdam is required, it can be approved by staff. You want
Perfect.
that?
That way they don't
Sure.
get jammed up. 'Cause
You
that's
know.
a busy ramp down there.
It really is.
It is.
So, you know, we don't want something to get
That's fine.
called up, so.
Thank you.
Okay, we got it.
All right. We have a motion?
Gas station.
Move to accept as discussed.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 I make a motion to adjourn.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Hold on. Go backwards for a second to elections. Representative to CPC, crack, and pesticide working group. Did you go to that meeting?
Yeah, I did. The one on pesticide use?
Yeah.
They didn't have a quorum. So,
I know Mark, I know staff
just
is
said
going
we
good.
Well, what I'm looking for is to see if
Courtney,
Courtney is
would
gonna
you be willing to keep
continue
attending the
as
pesticide working group
necessary.
meetings?
sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and did you figure out CPC?
We don't meet till tomorrow, so I can't give you an answer.
Okay.
You guys figure that out and we can readdress that
can
somewhere else. And Jamie, you're
redress that.
stuck on coastal resiliency.
And then crack.
Yeah, you're stuck on that one. Okay.
All right.
You know too much, you can't leave.
Oh,
Motion to
make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have
By
a
the
motion and
way-
a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The
We're
commission-
done.